If you like this podcast, share it with your friends. You can follow us on social media either on Facebook or on Twitter at cleverramblings. If you have any feedback or comments, please mail us at cleverramblings@gmail.com or visit our website cleverramblings.weebly.com. As always, we really appreciate you listening, and now enjoy today's podcast. Welcome everyone, this is the Clever Ramblings podcast. My name is Em.
And I'm Ivan.
And today we are again recording at my place, so Ivan is currently here in Germany. And
Yay!
So we had to do an episode. And today we're gonna talk about 3 topics again. The first one being the news that Kim Kardashian wants to be a lawyer and what we think about the whole situation after talking about Caitlyn Jenner last time. And then we're gonna talk about the importance of being able to make mistakes. And lastly, we're gonna close with the importance of persuasion in trying to change the world. So let's start with Kim Kardashian then.
So I kind of followed this because it was really big on Twitter and all social media, is that Kim Kardashian was now studying to be a lawyer. I think she revealed it. I think she has been in courses for over a year, actually.
I just saw on Instagram that she already went to classes. So.
Yeah, I think she's been involved in classes for a while now.
Okay.
So it's not just like she just announced that she was starting to do it. And I mean, she received a lot of backlash of oh, how could she be a lawyer, blah blah, she did, but what's interesting to me is of course the Kardashian family with the famous O.J. Simpson trial, her dad was a lawyer.
Yeah, true.
And so it's not like she grew up without knowing something about law. And then earlier, I think it was last year that I think it was last year that she got that woman off from
the non-violent drug
right, that was doing life in prison.
Yeah,
she visited Trump and got her sentence communed, right? That she got time served and she's out now. And so I think, in my opinion, all the backlash that she's been taking, I think is in a way is trash.
But what are they actually criticizing?
The fact, because it's okay, how can a reality star or someone like her who hasn't necessarily demonstrated, I guess, in a lot of ways they're just calling her stupid. And no, seriously, in a lot of ways they're just calling her stupid. And they're saying that, she's of course not the person to save people because of her privilege or whatever that, status and stuff like that. Of how because she's known for being this reality star thing like that. She's not known for caring about social justice.
Yeah.
So a lot of it has been focused on, her as an individual and looking at, oh, she shouldn't be the person to do this, and other people have tried to do this and haven't. But the way I look at it is I think the backlash is really trash, because in my opinion, she's a person who is trying to use her privilege, right? Being rich, being from an affluent family, trying to help out people who are in need.
But can she actually help them? If you think of the situation where she actually has to go to court, she actually gonna be taken seriously if the judge knows that who she is, what she did before a reality show, the sex tape, which kind of made her famous. Is she gonna be taken seriously in court, and does that help the person who hires her as a lawyer?
Honestly, I think so. I said because a lot of times in law, it's if you have influence within the court system, then that goes a long way. You could be smart as fuck and really have all the qualifications to be a lawyer, but if you're not connected, if you're not sometimes it doesn't necessarily help to just be overly qualified, overly smart. And I would never I've always been all of my friends have always shitting on me for this, But I've always been a defender of the Kardashian and Jenner family. Like, I don't think that they're stupid. Like, I think that they're very great at what they do, at marketing, at creating stories that people are interested in. So it's like, to me, they would not be this rich this long, because it hasn't been like they've started, like, all of a sudden they just became rich off of a fluke. It's like they've literally been working for years and years and years to build this sort of empire that they've had. And so to me, it's like, yeah, they're not necessarily doing the most intellectual, like, their content's like not the most intellectual stuff, but it has people interested. They know how to market themselves to people, which is a talent. It's a talent. It's not just, you know what I mean? So to me, there definitely is intellect and brains there. And obviously, this is something that it seems like that she's very passionate about.
Yeah.
And to me, if anyone who uses their privilege to help people who are less fortunate, I can't knock them. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Because to me, I know that takes a lot from someone. Like, she's worth, like, what? Like,
she
at
could
least
sit on her ass all day and
exactly
never worry about anything.
She doesn't have to do this. So the fact that people are shitting on her for doing this, I think it's just trash. Like, it's just trash. It's like, you want help, but now you care about where the help comes from. It's like, no, like, this. She really, like, she got this she got this woman off for a non-drug related, non-violent related offense. I think it was like possession of marijuana or something like that. That got this woman off of a life sentence.
Yeah.
So she's already shown, and this is before the law. She's shown this dedication to do this work. Something in her was sparked to do this, and I think that if anything, we should encourage it, because how many people of privilege are from her status, not the black, white, whatever, have this much money and don't do shit for anything. They don't care that much to be political. They don't care that much to really make a difference.
Well, if they are political, most likely they, like, support politicians who make them more money, or who, like, gonna make laws that benefit them and not other people.
Right. And in a way, it's very interesting, because her audience, right, is towards disadvantaged people. Like who she wants to help in law.
Yeah. Which
is not really her audience for everything that she sells. Because she sells high-end stuff, and she sells a reality show that doesn't really, like, you know, as a black person, I don't think that a lot of black people are, like, necessarily listening to Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I mean, it seems like not much of, like, an urban or minority show.
Yeah.
Right? So she's going, like, in a different direction than really her audience is. And she's sort of, you know what I'm saying? So it doesn't seem like it's necessarily a money move.
Yeah.
But even if it was a money move, if someone is doing something that's good, I don't care if they're making money in the process.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it doesn't matter, because I think people worry too much about intention, even though that's important. I think that also outcome is also very, very, very important. And you shouldn't, to me, too many times people fall on either side, right? They're like, oh, intention or consequence.
Yeah.
And they only go on either one of those other sides of the fence. But to me, both of those are always important in every decision. And so her intention, for me at least, seems to be nice, seems to be good. Yeah. Right? Because she's going against her audience. She does not need to do this. Yeah. If anything, she would lose more money fighting the criminal justice system than what she would, just like you said, just sitting her ass, just making profit. Just, I think the Kim Kardashian, the Keeping Up with Kardashians is what on? It's like 14 or like past 10 seasons.
Yeah, and I think it's way easier to make this, like, to keep going with the reality show than putting in the hard work to become a lawyer. So if she does it in, like, the legal way, or, like, the hard working way, and not paying for getting her degree and doing the shit, working on her getting the degree, I'm all for it. Why shouldn't she? Maybe she needs just some change of scenery and she wants to do something else for a bit. And if she does it the right way, why not? Why would people, like, say that's not a good thing? If she wants to help people and she has the influence, like I said, I don't know how the judge would see it that way, but for sure she probably has some good connections who can help the person and get them, like, the legal help they also would need besides her. So that's a good thing. As long as she does it the right way and the hardworking way, I'm all for it.
And she's posted pictures, and again, of course, she's gonna post pictures on social media because she's a social, like, entity, right? So she's posted pictures of her with her tutors and everything like that. So it seems like she's taking this very seriously. She's hired really important people who know law to help her.
Yeah.
To study. It's not like it doesn't seem like she's paying for her degree.
Yeah.
Right? And to me it's like she's really doing this. So I think that's a good thing. I think more people, I think in a way she's setting an example for a lot of people to do with privilege to do this. And in a lot of ways, like I said before, I think I talked to you about this before, is that I think actually that, like, I mean, this is kind of an aside, but I think the Kardashians have done a lot for even like things like interracial dating.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it, they've kind of broken a lot of barriers for interracial dating, but in a very more subtle way. Like you always see them with like having black boyfriends or something like that, but they don't necessarily make it a thing. But I think that in a way they've shifted the code, like they've shifted like the sort of the perspective on all this thing without necessarily making it more explicit. But I think that, of course, they're not the only people who have done this, right? There's other people who've done it, but I think in a way their show and their life, because it's so public, that has helped that as well, because it shouldn't matter what race you are. Who cares? Yeah. Right? And so I think they have done some great things, I think. And I think this is just another way that I think Kim is kind of like, well, fuck. I mean, she has all the money that she could really want. I mean, it's like, it doesn't make any sense, like, for her to like necessarily pursue that much more money. Yeah. Right? Who knows what the fuck is going on with Kanye? Right? But it seems like that she wants to do something that's good, and I honestly support her 100%. I support her to do that, because it's like, well, all the people who are complaining, and this is the thing, all the people complaining, what the fuck are y'all doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are y'all doing to help, like, these people in need? Yeah. Right? Like, how are you helping people get off, get lighter sentences, or getting off, life in prison or whatever like that, for shit that they should not even be in prison for in the first place? Yeah. Right? But that's something that always is very important to me. But it's like, what are y'all doing? If you're criticizing, look at yourself as well. And don't just look at, we have an expression like, don't just shoot the messenger. Yeah. Right? Like, she's trying to use her resources to help people. And I think that's always a good thing. Yeah. And I think that just let her live. I mean, of course, if it's something that's, sinister or bad that's underlying, I mean, it'll come out eventually. But to me, everything I've seen, especially when she's went to Trump and visited Trump and stuff like that, and got the other woman's sentence like communed, I think she's shown at least an interest in trying to find a solution and not just complain about the problems. Yeah. And so I'm all for her. So that's all I really have to say on the whole thing. Yeah, like you said, when you use your privilege for the right thing, that's a good thing. You don't have to necessarily come from nothing, and you can just then do good things. You can also have privilege, and if you use it in the right way, you probably have a lot of power, and that could really help people. So like I said, as long as she does it in the right way, as long as she's hardworking and really getting the degree done the legal way and the not paying way, I'm all for it. And like I said, I think she just gets bored and wants to help people once in a while, and that's a good thing. So with that, I think we can move on to the second topic, which was being able to make mistakes. And who, when not us, knows more about making mistakes? So we thought that was a good topic to talk about. Yeah. So just so y'all know, I've been drinking like a bottle of wine at this moment, because I don't know. I think, put it like this, I'm used to fucking up shit and making mistakes and shit. So maybe this is it really hits home now for me. But of course, to M's, happiness, because he just thinks my life is fucking entertaining. But this really came from, conversations that I've had with people about sort of the direction that it seems like the quote unquote educated society is going into. Where I see it a lot in Cambridge, and in the world and in social media, is where you find out that you know, maybe this celebrity or this figure has said some bad shit in the past, or there's a story that comes out of them doing some bad shit or something like that. And of course, now if it's very, very, very bad, of course, like honestly, like then obviously they deserve to be the backlash and everything. And be held accountable.
Yeah.
But if it's not something that's super, super serious, then I feel like we're moving in this ultra sensitive place where you feel like you have to be perfect. And it's like, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm shit. I mean, I'm far from fucking perfect. I mean, anyone knows I'm far from perfect. And to me, it's like I feel like we're moving in a space where it's dangerous to make mistakes. And so a lot of times, people who have they may have thoughts or ideas that are toxic, but they don't. The problem is they're not saying them out loud because they feel like that they can't voice their opinion without possibly losing everything.
Yeah.
And I think that we like I said, for serious things, of course, yes, they should be held responsible. But for some stuff, especially if they said it 10 years ago, I think
if you're like back when you were a teenager or a young adult, you a lot of the time make some dumb mistakes. That's life. You learn from your mistakes. It's not a saying for nothing, but yeah, I think that you're right. A lot of the time now, people bring up shit from like 10 years ago. You said that back then. Maybe you learned since then, but then it's always like you're connected to the thing. Maybe you said some like racial stuff sometime, and now you're smarter because you didn't know. You were in an environment where everybody didn't care. Like I grew up on like a small village. Like there were no like black people there, or like even like other people. Then they were living there for like 50 years. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people that grow up there get like from the environment some bad like things, like being racist or like being hostile to like refugees or migrants. I wouldn't be surprised at all. So. And then when you get out of there, you get to know the people. You are in another environment where it's maybe more open, where like you have influences from all over the world. You can see that you made mistakes, but then somebody brings up, yeah, you said some racist shit there. Now I don't like. I'm gonna tell that everybody, and you're gonna be like an outcast because you said it once, but now you know better.
Right, and. You know, in a lot of ways, you know, I saved them. You know, he's
from what?
He's from a small village. You know.
I met you after I already was like 3 years in Regensburg, so
I'm his only black friend. Let's just make sure we note this.
You don't know. Maybe I made some in the gym now.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, in the gym. So you think that's just our natural setting?
No, that's where I see them a lot.
See, I still have work to do. Obviously, still have work to do. No, but like you said, like I mean, sometimes like if anyone ever like said, oh, you said this when you like 10 years ago, it's like, okay, I was 15, I was a depressed fucking teenager living in the hood where people died every day. Yeah. Like you expected me to like say all the right shit. You know what I'm saying? Like this makes no sense. And I think the context is very important. Like I look at hip hop, which obviously is obviously very, very, very important in my life, and I always think. Like right now, hip hop is still very homophobic and everything like that, and very misogynistic, of course, and all these bad things about it, right? And I look at this, and of course, people that I talk to about hip hop, they hate these aspects of hip hop, but I hate these aspects as well. But because I come from these places that these people are talking about, I understand. I come from it. I have a different mentality. It's like. You're expecting, like context is a beautiful understanding tool. I think if anything that the world needs is to understand context. You're expecting a person from the hood, a minority person from the hood, where the system is working against them, right? Where they have very little access to education, easily locked up and put in jail and prison. They don't have resources, so. In a lot of ways, they sell drugs and do other shit. They don't have any family support, anything like this. They, like I said, they have no education, like no real education. They have no access to people who are really that much different than them because they live in these sort of bubbles where everyone is kind of like them, doing the same shit that they're doing. They're raised by people who aren't doing positive. Like I had no professors when I was growing up. I looked up to drug dealers my entire life. So to me, it's like you expect them to say like some profound shit on like race relations or to not be as, you know what I'm saying? Like you expect them to have these perspectives that are very nuanced and subtle. But why? Why do you think it's like it's very interesting with humans. It's like you put people in a shit environment and you're surprised that they act like shit. I never understood that. I never understood this phenomenon where it's like, okay, your life has been trash. We just put trash where you are, but we expect you to be fucking great.
Yeah.
And to me, it makes no sense. To me, that irritates me so much because I know these people and I know like how they don't know any better, and so you're punishing them in a way for shit that they first of all had no control of because they were born into this from the beginning, and so they don't know.
Yeah, the environment has such a huge influence on you, especially if you grow up, if you don't know anything else. Like I said, if you, for example, your parents are very homophobic and they tell you that like gay is a sin or whatever, if they're very religious, then you grow up with the same like ideology and think that being gay is a sin and that all the gays go to hell or whatever. And if you don't go out of that environment, how would you change your opinion? Because if you're always in this environment, you don't hear anything else. Like even the people who may try to convince you, you say that like they're stupid or like I don't want to listen to you because you're one of them and you want to convince me of that. And so if you not go outside of your normal circle where like for your family or like your neighborhood, like you said, when it's a bad neighborhood, if you don't go outside of that, how would you change your mind? How would that like, you're not all of a sudden waking up in the morning and be like, oh, I totally changed my ideology now. And so it's always a huge influence that the environment has on your ideology or your overall thinking. So I think if you move out of that, you recognize your mistakes, maybe not, hopefully. And then I think that's like a bigger accomplishment than somebody saying like, who grew up in like this total liberal environment that they always said like, yeah, gay, lesbian, hetero doesn't matter at all. I think it's a bigger achievement to go out of your normal environment, realize your mistakes, and like say, yeah, I made a mistake, and now I can see like what's the good stance there on whatever opinion, and you changed your mind. I think that's a bigger accomplishment than somebody saying like, oh, you said that back in the day and I was always like for gay marriage or whatever. I think that's a way bigger accomplishment and a way bigger of a like better person who can see that he or she made mistakes. I think that's like a big accomplishment.
Right. I mean, like look at me. Like, I mean, before, like, I was giving a talk about like it was this talk at my job about scientists from like diverse backgrounds, right? And I was talking about like I was talking about Philly, like where I'm from and everything, and about some of the obstacles that I had to overcome in order to make it into Cambridge, right? And I told people, it's like, listen, I didn't even know about some things like gender stuff with pronouns and other things before I came to Cambridge. I never heard of this shit before I came. Like some of the things I've never even been exposed to, and I consider myself very progressive, but I've never even been exposed to this shit before I came to Cambridge.
Yeah.
And so I've had a privilege to evolve a lot over the last years to really care about a lot of these other issues. I mean, in some ways I had no choice. Shout out to Juju, even though you don't listen to this because you're trash. But like I've been around so many different people that I never would have had a chance if I was back in Philly to ever interact with.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the times it upsets me when these people who grew up in very, like you said, like very liberal places, very like where all the information is there, they're around all these type of people and everything like that, and then you shit on people who it's like they're not. Like I always say it like this when I always talk about the hood, I always tell people like this. I'm like, yeah, in the hood a lot of bad shit happens, right? You have everything. You have murder. You have shooting. You have everything that goes down as bad. But I would never say that the people that do it are bad. They're just in bad situations, and they make bad choices, and they don't see another way out. And so I would never necessarily say these people are evil. That's why I hate when these people aren't evil. They may do evil shit, but they're not evil.
Yeah, I think there are not a lot of people who are evil from the beginning. There are a couple of like serial killers that I would define as being evil, but a lot of the time, just bad situation makes criminals. If you don't have any other way to support your family than by selling drugs, well, you're gonna sell drugs because you like wanna survive and you don't wanna be like hungry for like weeks. So you're gonna sell drugs. Maybe it's gonna kill somebody that takes the drugs. Maybe you're gonna go to jail. But if that's your only option, you do it. Humans do everything to survive, and if it's bad things, they're gonna do bad things. So I don't think like a lot of people are really evil.
Right. Like to me, and what I always say to those people is like, listen, if you never had to make a choice between selling a dime of weed to somebody or feeding your kid, don't talk to me about drug dealers ever. Don't talk to me about that, because you obviously have no understanding of the choices that people make. You've never been put in that position where you had to choose whether you sold this drug to, like, there's stories of people selling it to like pregnant women and stuff like that. You've never had to make that choice between selling drugs to a pregnant woman or feeding your kids at home.
Yeah.
And you may have opinions on which one is better, but you've not come from that life, so you have no idea what that's like.
Yeah, from the outside, it's always easy to say anything. Like, if you're not in the situation, you can say as much as you want. As long as you're not there, you can't really like judge people.
Right, and until you've been in these environments, like I was lucky, I never was in the streets, but I know a lot of street people, and so for me, like until you've been in these situations and know the pain that these people go through in order to make a way for themselves, you should not have an opinion. And so for me, when people make mistakes, back to the point, it's like, why are we, like, certain people should know better. Like, of course, if you come from these affluent backgrounds and you've been in this liberal stuff, like this liberal atmosphere, and you say some like really racist or homophobic shit, then of course, yes, you should be punished because you should know better.
Yeah.
But a lot of these people, they don't know better, and of course, it doesn't make it right. Like, people always make fun of me because I say I don't give excuses, I give explanations. But I really think that's a very important difference. Excuses is like, oh, like this is not a bad thing. Explanations is saying, yeah, this is a bad thing, but here's why this happened in the first place.
Yeah.
And to me, those are two different things. And so until you take context into it, like, people are going to make mistakes, and humans are not perfect. No human being is perfect.
Yeah.
And once you really think about that, you realize, okay, fine. Maybe me and M go out and get drunk, as we always do sometimes. But maybe we go out and, I don't know, for some reason we're assholes this one day because, I don't know, the alcohol affects us and we're assholes for this one day. Does that make us like terrible people? No, it just means like, okay, we were asshole this one day. We're very sorry for like our asshole behavior. But it's not like, you know what I'm saying? That doesn't define us who we are. It's like we make mistakes as human beings. We do dumb shit, especially, you know, if we're drunk or whatever like that. We do dumb shit. And, you know, life goes on and you learn from your mistakes, hopefully. That's the point.
Yeah. And
you shouldn't be judged by shit that you did, especially when you were like so fucking young that you had no perspective before then.
And when you change your mind. If
right.
you're still thinking the same thing, like bad things, then yeah. But if you change your mind, especially, then yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of what it is. Before you judge people on their mistakes, check your upbringing. Check like the privileges that you've had, and really think about how you judge other people. Because a lot of times people aren't bad people. They just either are very ignorant, they haven't had the education, or they just been through a lot of bad shit, and they're hurting too. And we don't know hurt people. So it's not like they're evil human beings, and we shouldn't judge them as evil human beings. And I think that's the problem with how we're moving forward as a society. Is that if you did something wrong, or you do something wrong, you're canceled. And I think that's ridiculous. I think you should not be canceled. You should be addressed, checked for like the bad shit that you've done, and then you learn and you realize why what you did is wrong, and do better from that. And that's how society evolves.
Yeah.
But if we assume everyone's perfect, you show me which one of y'all is perfect. And that's all I say. Because none of you are. Everyone's trash in some way. So that's all I say. Everyone's trash in some way.
Yeah, I think we said enough on this topic.
Just know everyone's trash. That's all you got.
That's the wine speaking.
Yep.
But let's close with how persuasion is important to change the world. And I think it's one of the most important things for changing the world, because in my mind, you can have the greatest ideas ever. If you can't persuade people of them, you don't have anything to change the world. You can be like a great thinker and have like great ideas, but if you can't communicate them to people and tell them why this would be beneficial for them, they're not gonna receive those ideas and not gonna like go with you and try to change the world. Especially you can see that in politics nowadays. Like there are some people who are like trash, but what they are good in is like persuading people in the way they want to. Like for example Trump. I think he persuaded a lot of like working people that he would bring the jobs back to America or like bring healthcare. He said all the shit, and I don't think like he has that great ideas, but he was really good at persuading a lot of people that he is saying the truth and that what he's saying he's really gonna do. And now we know he's a total liar and of course didn't do anything for the working people. But I think in this example you can really see how persuasion can like help you to change the world in a better way or worse way, depends on what your plan is. But I think if you can't persuade people, you can't do anything.
Right, and I think that a lot of times, I mean, I speak to some of my friends about this, and it's more like you think that someone's behavior, for example, is trash, right? You think what they're doing is bad, or their opinions are wrong, and your job is, okay, you want to show them that they're wrong. Now, I think a very ineffective way is to be like, oh, here's a list of facts, and by the way, you're fucking stupid
Yeah.
for what you believe, and so therefore I show you these facts and the arguments, and oh my gosh, by like you see these facts and realize you're fucking stupid, and you're like, oh yeah, like obviously I was fucking stupid and now I believe you. It's like that doesn't happen. That's not real. As soon as you start attacking people in their beliefs, they get defensive.
Yeah.
You have to persuade, and persuade I don't mean manipulate. I don't mean manipulate them to like trick them. I don't mean that. I mean persuade, the art of persuasion in the sense of getting into their shoes, understanding their mindset of where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Like I have a story when I was back in undergrad of I was working for someone, and I had a boss, and he was very conservative, and we didn't really agree on most political things or anything like that. And I think I watched a YouTube video by a psychologist. I think his name is Jonathan Haidt, and he was talking about like different ways to to get through to conservatives versus liberals. And what I noticed was this. He said, of course, if you attack people and their beliefs, it's not effective, right? You have to somewhat, because conservatives especially react more from their region of their brain called the amygdala,
Yeah.
which is responsible in emotional responses. And so they really take it as more like a fear or a very, very emotional response when they're presented with new information. Whereas while liberal people sort of take the information in and assimilate it in more of the frontal lobes to somewhat think about it more. So that's why they're more progressive in a sense, because they're constantly waiting for new information to update their perspectives. And so he's obviously very conservative. So he probably, the way his brain interprets a lot of things is a lot different than the way maybe my brain would interpret things. But I know this, right? So having this information, I spoke to him and I said, we were talking about like prison reform and how I said I do not believe in life sentences, especially when you're young. I think it makes no sense for a person who's 18, 19, 20, whatever, when you're very young, whatever age cutoff that is, when you're young, and I would take it, even if you've killed someone and you're very, very young, your brain is still very much in development. And if we take it in context, maybe maybe like we were talking about before, maybe you don't have access to certain resources. So I'm not saying, it's not an excuse, it's an explanation that you've done a bad thing. But does that mean your life should be taken away when you didn't have really all the information to make the decision that you're being held accountable for? And I'm not saying that, of course, I'm not saying these people should go free, and obviously they should be held responsible. But I don't believe in life. I don't believe you take a life for a life, right? There's not an eye for an eye necessarily, in my opinion. And I was talking to my boss about this. And we were disagreeing on this, right? Now I knew that he's very Christian, and so he's very religious. And coming from like I was raised Catholic, so I understand the Christian religion a lot. And I told him, I said, I knew I had to switch gears to get him to understand why I didn't believe life sentences made any sense, especially for young people. And I said to him, I said, Jesus, which is crazy because I was like, I'm like gonna just like go fully. And I said, Jesus preached about forgiveness, didn't he? And he was like, yeah. And I said, so the weird thing about the prison system is that when someone does a bad thing and you throw their life away, that's not forgiveness. That's just an eye for an eye. But I thought the New Testament was what Christians consider like sort of the best testament, is like Jesus preached forgiveness and you should forgive people. But I think that just throwing them away in prison for the rest of their life is not forgiveness. And I think, and I said, a lot of these people that I grew up around, they had no idea, they didn't see any other life for themselves besides the situation they were placed in. And so it's no surprise that they've done the things that they've done. And I told him, I said, it's not that I don't think that it doesn't make it right, but at the same time, we should forgive these people and not necessarily just throw them away. And it was a very interesting moment because at that moment, me and him didn't agree on most things, like literally most things we talked about. We were on like sort of opposite sides of the spectrum. And when I told him about this, he was like, he paused for a minute. And at first when he paused, I was like, oh shit, here we go. I was like, it's gonna be some weird, like some like shit that's gonna make me mad. But then he was like, I've never thought about that before. And he said, I agree. He said, I've never thought about that perspective before. And it took me to get into his mindset, into his shoes, in order for then him to say, like, that we're not necessarily saying different things. We're just saying it in different ways. And sometimes the different way that you say it makes it seem like you're disagreeing, but you're not really disagreeing. So when I gave it to him from that perspective, I was able to persuade him, not manipulate, not trick him, but persuade him into saying, oh yeah, like I've never thought about it like that. I agree with you. And then life sentences aren't, in most cases, the way to go. And so for me, like I have evidence, like empirical evidence. Like, yeah, I mean, of course, there's only one person, but we won't talk about that because sample sizes and stuff. but I've seen this with people. Once you get into their mindset and you talk to them from a language that they understand, they think of it differently. And you're able to get across with them. You're able to communicate in a more effective manner than you would if you were just speaking from this ultra intellectual, factual thing that they don't give a shit about. And like, what's the point? So a lot of times I see a lot of activists and a lot of people speaking on this very high level about intellectual stuff, and it's just like, listen, fam, like these like the people you're talking to, they don't give a fuck about any of this stuff. They just like, they don't care about the whole like theories that you're coming with, because listen, they have other lives to live, and honestly, they don't give a shit. You have to speak to them at a very human level and communicate with them at a human level, and then they'll get you. And in most cases, like we said before, these people aren't bad people. We're just misunderstanding each other. And once you get to that misunderstanding and speaking the same language and play by the same rules, then a lot of things become a lot easier. Right? Because when you're playing by different rules, then of course you're going to have disagreements, because we're not playing by the same rules. It doesn't make sense. If I say we should do this and you say we should do that, and they're two different things, then of course we're not going to agree.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to persuade someone, coming from their perspective and using their perspective to get your point across. Because like you said, if just two opposites of the spectrum collide, one's gonna get defensive and nobody will benefit for the conversation, because they say they think it should be like that, and you say it's going to be because of like moral reasons, because of like this and that, and they come from a total different. Of course they just don't want to change their mind in the beginning because they think they're right. So what you have to do is you have to give them like reasons why you think you are right, but from their perspective. Like, yeah, but you see it in this way too, so the logical conclusion is that you should agree with me and not be on the opposite opinion than me. So I think that makes a person like a really good persuader, if he can come from this side and like analyze the person, like what is his ideology, what is he thinking, how can I use that to show him that, well, basically we don't even like disagree a lot. We just like, we have the same base, but we come to different conclusions. But maybe if I can like point you to this and that, maybe you come to the same conclusion as I. And if not, it's fine too. I don't like need to change your whole ideology in like one day. That's like, it's way too much. So I don't think like you can like persuade a conservative to become a liberal in one day. But you can do it over time by just showing them like, yeah, you're not really that different from me, aren't you?
Right, because we're all human.
Yeah.
Right, we're all human in a way, and we all have feelings. We all have things that we care about, and when we see people suffering, when we really understand that suffering, I think that empathy and people to empathize with people, I think it comes out. And of course, we don't have unlimited empathy for everything, but I think when someone sees that injustice is happening, and they understand the injustice is happening, and they don't feel attacked about the injustice, they will respond like human beings. They won't be defensive. They won't be any of this other stuff. But I think if you come from a very, on your high horse about this theoretical intellectual shit, it's like that just doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it's never gonna work.
It only works in your own circles, but not outside.
Right, but in that case, you're not influencing anyone, because
exactly,
it's all about like if you're just
a big circle jerk and you don't
right. It's echo chamber, and it's nothing. You're not influencing anything. If you post a whole bunch of shit about something you care about, most likely your friends also care about this in most cases.
Yeah.
Right. So when I post things on Facebook, I post things that maybe some of my friends won't really agree with, because then it's like, at least, I mean, probably they won't read it, but at least they'll see it. They'll see it in some way, hopefully, and maybe it influence them to think about things differently. But if I knew that that's why, like, if I knew all my friends were from the same place, that's why I'm lucky to have friends from, like, all over the world. But, like, if I had friends from the same place, I wouldn't post shit about the same thing, because they all agree with me.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't make any sense to do that. And so you really have to get into the minds of people, because most of the time, like, these people are not bad people, man. They're really not bad people. Like, most disagreements I've had with people, it's been just, like you said, like M said, the base is the same, but just the conclusions that have reached were different. Yeah. You know, and I think that's that's really what sums it up. Is these, like I said, these people are not bad people.
Yeah, and I think, like we said, persuasion is important, and the way you do it is even more important. Because if you can do it in a bad way, with just on your high horse, thinking that you're right all the time and trying to convince people, which is not gonna work, or you're gonna go in their shoes and from their perspective try to change their mind. And I think if we had a lot of people who would do that, a lot of things would be better in the world.
Yeah.
Like, if you can persuade a lot of people for, like, good things, do it in the right way, then you can really change the world. And with this, I think we're gonna close, and Ivan's gonna be back in like 2 weeks, so we have to record again then.
Yeah, I know.
So back-to-back episodes in Germany.
Maybe I'll drink 2 bottles of wine before this one.
Yeah, not before we go to the Duld. We shouldn't record on that day, or after we went to the Duld. A midnight episode.
We can record during the Duld. You know, we can record during the Duld. I think I'm much more lively, like, when I've had, like, at least a bottle of wine. You know, I'm good.
So thanks everybody for listening, and we're gonna see you the next time.
All right, bye.